Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Big Talk on Global Television. My name is Odikat Michael. I'm glad to have you as your host. And of course, we'll be taking a look at the move by the federal government to assist the students in the educational sector some soft loan. This is to enable, according to the bill that has been signed to law by the president, to assist students in the tertiary institution. Our educational sector over time has been an attention of so many Nigerians, a matter of concern. Some even says that it is, of course, a sector that meant to be declared a state of emergency due to the dilapidated infrastructures that we have in the educational sector from the primary, secondary, and even in the tertiary institution. As the student loan being signed by the president to law being the answer to the challenges that we have on the educational sector, these are the questions, these are our deliberations, and this will be the focus we'll be having tonight on Big Talk. You will have to stay with us so that we can actually get to unravel some mysteries in the educational sectors. What Nigerians really want, what education can really work for Nigerians? Is the education that we have practicable in the 21st century? All of this will be what my guests, of course, will be connecting virtually with joining us on the discussion tonight. You just have to stay close to your screen, as I'll be right back after this break. Don't go away. All right, better time for us to stay with us, of course, right from that short break. I'll be joined by two gentlemen who are so passionate about Nigeria's education. The essence is that education is very paramount, and when we cannot ever have a brighter future of this country if we do not give focus to attention. The move by the federal government to sign the student loan bill into law, does it really answer some basic questions in the educational sector? And these are what two gentlemen, of course, will be connecting with from Lagos virtually will be discussing tonight. I'm being joined by Sochima Peter, a regular guest, Executive Director of Both Youth Network. Good to have you, Mr. Sochima. All right, so of course we'll also be having the CEO of Child Solidarity, Emediong Akpabio. He's the CEO of the Child Solidarity, a very passionate advocate for children's education. Of course, we'll also be connecting us virtually. Mr. Mediong, if you are joining us, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me.
Good to have you. It seems we do hope that your network will be very friendly for this conversation. Take a look at the move by the federal government to sign the student, the bill into law, the student loan. Is this really an answer to the many questions that we have in the educational sector before we get to delve into the issue proper? What is your assessment on that law?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope that you can hear me because
yes.
I don't know if you can hear me. I would like thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. My assessment of the bill of the student loan status is the fact that it could attempt to solve the problem, but it might not be the answer, right? So I'm not here to say, oh, it's not good or it's good. I'm here to say that everything can work, anything can work at it just depends on how it is being implemented. Don't forget that
It's muted.
this student bill, when it came out first, it had a few questions. Like
So you
people
can
had
see now.
a lot of issues. People had a lot of issues with it, right? And it had to be sent back for a review. Now that it has been reviewed and has been passed by the president, um, we have to really be very positive about it and to see what it achieves or what it could attempt to achieve. So my assessment is that it could attempt to solve some problems, but it might not. It will not definitely be the answer, to the crisis in education.
All right, many thanks, Mr. Emediong. Let me get to connect Sochuma. Sochuma, if you are joining us, good to have you join us on the show.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Let me begin with you. I mean, Emediong have actually given his view on the student loan. What is your take on the student loan? Is this an answer to the many questions that we have in the educational sector?
Yes, the student loan is actually long overdue. It's actually an answer. It's a welcome development. It's an answer to so many questions that we have been asking here in Nigeria. Just like I said, it's long overdue. And just like I've also reiterated in this program, that we can do better in terms of the amount of funding that we are doling out into the educational sector. We can do much more better, and we need to ensure that we start majoring on the majors and minoring on the minor. Education for every nation should be a priority. How do you explain that you are amassing just a meager 5 billion naira to a student loan, something that would have generational impact, something that will have, return on investment, okay, in the nearest future? You're doling out just a meager 5 billion naira, and yet you're giving out a whole 90 billion naira to subsidize the Hajj, Muslim, for the Muslim brothers. So you realize that our priority is actually not not well defined. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't subsidize for our Muslim brothers to engage in their Muslim right. I'm not saying that, but we need to start putting square pegs in square holes and round O's, so that we can get the required results that we need in the educational sector. Thank you.
All right. Let me get back to Emediong. Mr. Emediong, you have carried out several campaigns for child education. You've traveled far and wide and near, I mean, all the crannies in Nigeria. What has been your assessment? Because when we begin to, we've not paid attention, it seems we are not paying attention to the primary education. What are the statistics? What are the level of the primary education that we are having for our children at the basis of this country, before we get to even talk of the tertiary institution that federal government is trying to subsidize?
Okay, so thank you very much again for that question. So my thoughts would be this: for every one of us you see today, right? We are able to function at this level, just like yourself and just like my colleague on the studio, because we may have had a quality or near, fair basic education, primary education, right? It is that near fair primary basic education that is the foundation of what other things in terms of education would be built on, right? It just starts well, would definitely do better. I mean, that's the main thing. And there is a report that I just want to take our minds to. For everyone listening in, there's a report called Generation 2030 report. This Generation 2030 report talks about what will look like what they call the demographic dividend, right? And when it comes to one of the pillars of that report, which is education, it lays emphasis on primary education. And it says clearly that in Africa, of course, where our country falls under, that a lot of children are not able to properly transition from primary education to secondary school education. And this has also added to the number of children who are out of school today, right? So when you look at that report talks about so many things, including infrastructure, the state of this system. It talks about the facilities. It talks about so many things, right? And that is where we are today in this country, right? The state of primary education has really declined. It's not what it used to be, right? This is not something that somebody says, oh, you are saying this because you are biased. These are clear. These are indices that are clear, right? If you just take just a regular visit to these schools, you will see we have classes today without windows, we have classes today without chairs, we have classes without even teachers, right? In the primary school education, we have children who go to farm to go and farm, and those kind of things. So beyond injecting funding, like Peter say, injecting funding into these things and asking that we should do better, I think that we really need to really like rework, provide what should serve as an adequate infrastructure, an adequate investment in improving educational infrastructure, right? This is what will provide and deliver quality education, and this is what will serve as an incentive for children who want to be in school, right? The last point I want to make on this would be, make a comparison between the state of our primary school education and that of other countries, right? You will see that a child who lives, for example, like a primary school here in Nigeria might not be able to compete fairly with his contemporaries from other countries, right? Those ones are doing the right investment. We are not doing that, right? Sometimes we are even more focused on the numbers. How many people are coming out to take common entrance examination or this to move to the next level? But are we looking at the quality it delivers? So the problem is we are lacking on quality, right? Not delivering what it should deliver, because the state of these infrastructures are totally terrible, and they cannot do what they are supposed. They cannot save what they are supposed to save, and it is impacting on educational outcomes for pupils, or pupils at that level.
All right, many thanks, Emerian, for giving us, statistics of what our infrastructure looks like, and then that will help us for us to begin to know where do we get it wrong. I mean, the essence of education has always been. It seems even our leaders, our senators, members of the House of Reps, even the governors, they know the importance of education. But what are the bottlenecks that are in this sector that are not really allowing things, and of course, there are many implementations to take place? Let's take a look at a very sensitive issue, which has to do with unqualified and incompetent teachers that we have in a classroom. We've seen in this country a governor visiting a primary school, to conduct a mock test or exams to the teachers, and the result, me and you agree with me, that was very laughable. What do we begin? How do government begin to? Who are those responsible for the recruitment of teachers to skills? Because it's quite very sad that even when you have teachers in the classroom, these are people that are not competent. Or do we not share away? Do we get not to discuss about this, which is also contributing to the degrees of education that we have in the primary sector? So Chima, what do you have to say in this regard?
Yes, thank you very much. Chinua Achebe used to say something that if you do not know where the rain started to beat you from, you probably will not know where the rain dried up from your body. Invariably, he was trying to say that if you don't know the source of the problem, you probably will not know the solution to the problem thereof. Now, whether we like it or not, okay, if we go back to the root cause of this impediment, we'll realize that the root cause is due to the lack of political will on the part of our politicians and on the part of the government, the lack of political will. And this is, this can be traced to probably their long-term agenda. During election period, okay, before I even talk about during election period, if you want to put people under your perpetual control, all right, if you want to put people under your perpetual subjugation, you'd destroy or reduce the effectiveness of the educational sector and also introduce poverty in the land. Once you do that, you put them under your perpetual control. And that is why you realize during the election period, people grapple for a cup of rice, a cup of beans, as though that would sustain them for the next 4 years. This can be traced to the high level of illiteracy and the high level of poverty in the land. So you realize that the government, they lack this political will to ensure that the educational system work. Because when the people that are involved in the recruitment system, when the people that are involved in bringing in new hands into the primary school system in Nigeria, when they see the lackluster nature of the government, when they see that the government themselves are corrupt, what do you expect from them? They will also be lackluster. They will also do things, lackadaisically. They will not put in their minds. They will not put in everything that is required to get in the best hands into the system. And also in the path of the teachers that are also recruited, you realize that because the lackluster nature flows from the head down, so you see that they will tell themselves, if the government can be acting this way, if even our organs at the top, all right, if our bosses can also act in a lackluster manner, who am I? Am I Jesus? Those sort of sentiment. They would also apply that sort of sentiment in their work rate, in in their teachings, in their work rate, in their activities in this school. So this is where we need to get it right. We need to get it right on the part of leadership. And that is why when we want to elect leaders, let us ensure that we elect leaders that take education as a priority. Except we start doing this, except we start taking, electing leaders and put out other tribal and religious sentiment and elect leaders that take, education as a topmost priority for the development of every nation, then we're a long way to getting this result, achieving this result that we want in education. Thank you.
All right. Emidiom, do we have the issues of poor funding or lack of training to our teachers? I mean, in the primary schools, what do you feel are the issues? Or are you still sharing on the thoughts of our recruitment processes that we have gotten it wrong? Because these are the people that probably have passed through some level of assessment before being recruited to teach in the classroom. Is it that they are not really engaged or trained, to meet up with the expectations in the sector?
So yeah, thank you very much. So I just listened to Peter's call, and he makes a lot of sense, right? Really and truthfully, it's not funding. It's not funding. The only place I would talk about funding would be the fact that funding is supposed to be an addendum, an incentive, right? When there is funding, it should be targeted towards set things. So you are putting funding either to improve the welfare of teachers, or you are putting funding to improve the infrastructure and the learning environment, but not funding, right, that would impact on the quality of people, of the trainers. It's not funding. Now, I would have already been trained, presumably, to be a teacher before we say I want to go and be a teacher. But this is the problem, clearly. The problem clearly is that people go into these areas for employment's sake. They are being recruited because somebody in the family is idle, and what are you waiting for? I know somebody who is recruiting. Carry your CV and send to person A, B, and C. I'm getting recruited. Did the person want to be a teacher? Is that the career the person wanted to take? No. So that's just the fundamental issue, that we go into a lot of things into this country, looking at it from the angle of employment. I just want to be employed as a teacher, but I'm not interested in teaching. So if I don't have interest in teaching, how is going to just, impact on results, on outcomes, clearly. And for me, for example, I ask people, do you love what you do? Go and ask those teachers, do they love what they do? And you will get the answer to this question. They clearly don't love what they do. They just want to be employed. Somebody has to be active to earn a living. That's the truth.
All right. So many, like you've actually said, it seems many people just find what is very close to them to be engaged. You know, we understand the level of unemployment in the country is also affecting, but that's some level, of assessment that those that has a mandate to recruit teachers to be able to adhere to, so we can actually get some basic education for children. We'll move away from that to look at also what are the government efforts in this regard. So, for instance, back then in my state, so governor had signed a free and compulsory education for all. So now we're finding that it's not just about signing, the issue of free and compulsory, making a free and compulsory education in your state. It also the fact that poverty seems to also be contributing to this, because an hungry man may not be able to sit in a classroom. And Emilio had said many people are going to the farm when it's time. When it was time for them to be in the classroom. How do we begin? And then even in the federal government, in the last administration, made an attempt to start feeding. The peoples in the classroom. The school feeding, the issue of school feeding program, even when some level of political motive was brought to that system. All of this has been effort, but we're still finding it hard to get out of all of these mess. This has driven a lot of children out of classroom. So, Chima, what's your thought on that?
Yes, I think this is the case of the voice of Esau and the hand of Jacob, or something like that. I don't know if I got that statement correctly. You will come to the public and say, oh, free education everywhere. Every kid is entitled to getting a free education from primary to secondary school. And behind, we have some religious social effect that is actually impeding these children from going to school. For example, we know that Nigeria has the highest level of out-of-school children in Nigeria. We are grappling currently with 20 million out-of-school children in Nigeria. And if you do the mathematics correctly, you realize that 70% of that 20 million is emanating from the north. So what is the southern part of Nigeria doing differently? Why is the southern part of Nigeria not really? We know that we have out-of-school children in the southern part of Nigeria, but why is it so much in the northern part of the country, whereby more than 70% of the out-of-school children is located in one region of the country? And we can trace this to the Almajiri system. The Almajiri system, we all know what the Almajiri system. I don't need to go down to breaking it down and all that. So the Almajiri system is something that is both, has a religious undertone, but it is now social. It is now a normal activity that is being practiced in the north. So, we have a long way to go to breaking this chain of out-of-school children in the country, whereby how do we explain, all right, the role of the government, of our traditional leaders, okay, of our religious leaders, to seeing this problem mitigated as much as we can? Why will these children not be put into school, or if, as much as we can, even enroll these children into a kind of religious, educational setting, whereby we are using one stone to kill two birds. Okay, they are undergoing their religious rites and also being educated at the same time. How do we solve this problem? So it takes a collective effort from the part of the government, our religious leaders, our traditional leaders, to see that we put these children back to where they belong, which is school. They need to go back to school, and that is where we need to start from. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Pabio, hunger is on the high side. an hungry child may not be able to have his or her here in the classroom. This has been an issue. Even the move by the federal government, the school feeding program, has not yielded result. What more can be done, to get our kids back to the classroom?
Yeah. So that this is really like my area of focus, right? We have been engaging to advise actually. I'm sure you're aware of the commission that was passed by the former president. Also an advocacy effort that we've been engaging over the years. And I agree again with Peters. 70% of the issue around children is in the north. If we can solve that Amajiri issue, we would have reduced issues around children, child welfare, child poverty, child education by over 60%. That's the truth. But what else do we need to do to send people back to school? We need, in two contexts, within the context of the Amajiri system, we need to introduce a model that allows these children to seek their Islamic education in a comfortable or from a comfortable place. How do I mean? You don't travel from here to Kano in the name of seeking education. You can leave your home to the next neighborhood, and that place must have the capacity to provide what you are meant to receive. I have done a personal tour of some states in the north via my work. We visited these places. Now, the problem is that for those places, those Ahmadiyya centers, most of them are oversaturated. They lack the capacity to provide what they were meant to do. So it is now like a trap. These children are held up in a trap. That's the truth. When you come to the south, right, it's now driven by socioeconomic factors like poverty, hunger, high cost of living. This is
We are still with you. Go ahead, please. I feel that network is trying to get they started from the interaction. Let's get back to Sochima. Away from the issues that we actually raised, I mean, and many concerns that we've established about what has really led the kids out of the classroom and what should be, what must be done, taking them back to the classroom. Let's move away from that discussion to take a look at the curriculum. I mean, the curriculum in the secondary schools. We've actually made a background on the primary. Another yard of educational sector has been also in the secondary, after the primary, secondary, and now in the tertiary institutions. Take a look at the curriculum in the secondary. Is this reflecting the expectations of the 21st century education for the secondary?
No, obviously, especially the public system curriculum, it's obviously not reflecting the 21st century standard of education. If you compare the curriculum, the public system curriculum in Nigeria and Africa as a whole, with that of the West and with that of countries like China and Japan, you realize that we are far away, just like the heavens are farther from the earth. You realize that we are far way along from them. You would check their curriculum, check their schooling system, and on a daily basis you see that they expose their kids to handmade tools, all right, things that that comes handy, technical education, technical reasoning, and these kids are being developed, their minds have been developed to be able to produce, their minds have been able to develop to be able to create. But in the Nigerian system, in the African, educational curriculum, you realize that the educational system kind of limits the minds of these children, limits the minds of the student to be able to only say, cram and speak, cram and speak, cram and speak what they have read. It doesn't open up their mind to be able to ask questions or to be able to create. No, it only limits their mind to read, cram, and say. Read, cram, and say. So the theoretical, system of educating our pupils, our students, needs to be stopped. We need to develop on that and expose our children to the technicality that is involved, that will make them to become creators, that will make them to become problem solvers. And this is where I think we need to begin from.
if we can get Emidon back to join us on the show. All right, we're still having some troubles at this end. So Chuma, we're now having a one-on-one with you right now. What then should now become the responsibility of, the bodies, starting with the responsibilities in crafting some of these policies and implementation so that we can actually have a robust educational sector? Because the truth of the matter is that we may and you will agree that if we would not pay attention to this sector, it has a ripple effect, in the future of this country.
Absolutely, absolutely. The bane of development of every nation is in the educational sector. Just like I said, if you want to perpetually put a group of people under your control, ensure that you destroy the educational sector and introduce poverty into the land, then you put them under your perpetual control. For us to see the development that we need in the nation, then we need to start prioritizing our educational sector. It starts from policy making. What are the kind of policies that are being made? We need to start changing our curriculum, just like I've earlier said. Let us start changing the curriculum. Let us develop the curriculum to the 21st century standard. And the government need to start improving on the teacher salary. How do you explain that a politician is earning more, earning more salary than a professor? How do you relate it? You can't explain it. A politician earns more than a professor. It means that we have a long way to go. So we need to start improving the salaries of our teachers, of our lecturers. Let them feel encouraged to do what they need to do. And we need to also start rebranding the face of teachers in Nigeria. Let teachers be proud to be teachers. Let us, remove this social dichotomy. Let us remove this dysfunctional mentality that once you become a teacher, that means that you don't have any other option in life than to go and be a teacher. It means that you're battling with poverty. That is why you just accepted to be a teacher. So let us not ascribe teachers as being poor people. Let us, rebrand that notion, rebrand that mentality around being a teacher. Then also let us ensure that we start improving on the teaching environment, the resources that we need for us to be able to be effective. I mean, the teachers to be able to be effective in passing on this knowledge to the kids. Because how do you explain it that a classroom has no ceiling? How do you explain it that a classroom has no chair and desk? We have seen multiple pictures of students sitting on the ground writing. Where is the effectiveness? How do you expect them to be able to listen and understand what the teachers are saying in such environment? It doesn't work that way. So we need to start, doling out funds, all right, into the educational system so that we start improving and start, getting the necessary tools and resources, infrastructure that the students and the teachers need to be able to make this teaching and the teaching more effective.
Your concern about teachers' welfare just made me to remember the songs we used to take it back then, that reward of teachers are in heaven. So when someone asks, what happens if our teachers begin to see some of the reward here on earth? Thank you for that very submission. Mr. Emidon, as we are about to round up the show, tell us about your concern about the Nigeria's curriculum in secondary, in the tertiary, in the move and in the expectation of the 21st century.
Okay, my network is giving me issues, but it's backward. That's my answer.
We are still in Nigeria. We understand.
It's backward. It's fine. The curriculum is backward. It's backward. It's not solving any problem again. It has not prepared us for emerging threats. We cannot face the future with this curriculum. We need a curriculum that can enable us, prepare us to face the future. When you make a comparison with people in other countries, they are far ahead, not because of anything, because there's adequate investment, understanding that there are things that would, come up in the future. So they are prepared, right, into the future. Today we are talking about AI, right? No, show me a place in the curriculum. There is no curriculum at all, educational curriculum, planning to address threats or solutions or prepare you to handle those kind of AI, related issues that will help in the future that would influence the future of work even in the future. This is not a conversation that we are ready to have because we are still backward, we are still grappling with issues that we have not yet resolved, even with the old curriculum. So the problem is enormous. I mean, Peters has really said a lot of things. And if I still want to add, it's just me speaking English, but these are the real issues. We are behind. We cannot do anything with it. We just have to keep passing the numbers, right? This is a situation where people are evolving and not improving because there is nothing in the head.
Right. Gentlemen, as we round up the show, so Juma, let me begin with you. What is your thoughts? What is the immediate action that must be taken by the government in addressing the educational crisis that we're having in this country? I mean, as urgent as it might be, what should they begin to pay attention to?
Yes, they need to start paying attention to policy. We need to start making policies that ensure that we rebrand the educational curriculum in Nigeria. Let us start with that. Let us start improving on the curriculum. The curriculum of the educational system in Nigeria. Once we're done with the curriculum, just like Akpabio said rightly, we are not, paying attention to things that will make our children ready for the future. And definitely we all know that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. If we are not paying attention to what will make our children ready for the future, then what is the hope of the future? Because these children are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. So let us start rebranding the curriculum of the educational curriculum in Nigeria. Create policies that would develop, because it starts with policies. What are the policies that we can make that would ensure that everyone sits up? Because the lackluster nature, right from the government to the teachers to even the educational board that we have in Nigeria, the lackluster nature needs to be addressed. Everyone needs to sit up, and this will actually be done through policy creation. So let us start creating policies. And just like I said, from the root cause, the government needs to sit up. All right? The political will from the government, the government needs to start amassing political will to ensure that these things are being done. Thank you.
All right, Emedon, I mean, very quickly, tell us what should be the immediate action of government to get our children back to the classroom. I understand you've been in the front burner of this situation right there. What more robust engagement can the government bring to the table to get more kids back to the classroom? I mean, to solve the issues and the high percentage that we are having, even recently released by UNICEF. And also, what do you also feel that must be done to urgently fix the issues of education as we begin to round up? All right, of course, that's much, of course, we're trying to get the conversations on the show about the guests, and that is the size of our discussions that we'll be having tonight on issues of education. More recommendations have been made, and of course, many concern has always been to the fact that the education must be prioritized by government. If government does not prioritize education, then the future of this country is actually at danger. And we do not want a situation whereby we do not have a well-informed Nigeria. God bless Nigeria. I am Medical Michael. Many thanks. See you again tomorrow for another edition on Big Talk.